In the light of another dismal home defeat, we made West Ham look like Bayern Munich. I did briefly consider skipping the opening monologue. I mean, if Spurs aren't going to bother, why should I? But I'm a professional, allegedly. So here we go. Thomas Frank said, "We are close to something very good." Cootie said, "This was a disaster." Who's right? It's a tight call. As things stand, we're persisting with a manager who appears to be failing on every level because, well, why? Do they want to keep him? Is there no alternative right now? What's the plan? Is there a plan? Bissouma came back and he was decent. What's he inhaling now? Tell, our one vaguely attacking threat, was taken off, and he's out of the Champions League squad again. He's not happy. And poor old Ben Davies may have quietly played his last game, the probable end of a proper Spurs servant. Now, Vinay Venkatesham's statement was odd, wasn't it? The timing, the tone, the bullish content. But why would we believe a word? Until he sacks Frank, none of that matters, does it? Fans are pining for Levy. So that's where we've got to. What's going on? We'll try and get to the bottom of it, or at least have fun trying. Strap in. It's Nice One Cyril.
Nice one, Cyril.
So, welcome to Nice One Cyril. I'm Simon Lipson. With me today, we've got Kevin Acott, the Crouch End Grinch, and of course, the dame herself, Julie Welch. So let's, I don't know, why the fuck do we kick off? It's not easy, is it, this? A miserable defeat, Julie, to West Ham. And what makes it all the more miserable is the fact that it was so inevitable.
I don't know what to say. I really don't, because I just couldn't imagine that it could get so awful, and it's got even more awful. I have to say that I did not watch the West Ham game. I wasn't at it. Normally I would be watching on Match of the Day, either in the evening, I'd stay up specially, even if they were crap, or I'd sort of get up in the morning and do a bit of, Pilates on my own, a few bits of weightlifting while watching Match of the Day. And I thought, I just can't. I think that the nadir was watching Flappy put his foot on the ball and then pass to Cootie, who passed it to Mickey, who passed it back to Flappy, and then Flappy put his foot on the ball again and waited. And can this man not make any decisions whatsoever? Is he completely paralysed?
Well, that was also, we were losing 1-0 at the time, I think I'm right in saying. And of course then Kevin Flappy flapped at the end, and Callum Wilson scored. I knew Callum Wilson was going to score because I'd left by then, and I just heard that he was coming on the radio, and I thought, well, that's that. There's your winner. Pathetic, wasn't it? The whole thing.
It was. My whole journey to the ground, I was, again, feeling optimistic. I thought Conor Gallagher, great. Yeah, it's a great signing. It's not enough, but it's a great signing. He'll improve us. And I was feeling really good. And the first 10 minutes matched my positivity. And then, of course, I mean, how stupid am I? How 50 odd years of watching him. And of course, it didn't last more than 10 minutes. It wasn't our very, very worst performance of the season, but it's all relative. It was still crap. And it was to West Ham, a really not very good West Ham side. And I've tried to look for positives, really, and there aren't any apart from maybe if Frank goes, we replace him with anyone, actually. That's a positive. but the whole club, everything feels toxic. Actually, a lot of Spurs fans have been really annoying me the last couple of days as well. I think there's just an unpleasantness around the whole club at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. It is toxic, and I mean, one of the things I find very difficult to deal with is this ad hominem abuse of Frank. Now, look, he's a very decent guy. We know that he's a reasonable man. He's a civilized person who's doing a very bad job. Okay, so we have to separate the two things. And I don't really understand why people are having a go at him personally because he's failing professionally. It makes no sense. Julie, it's true, isn't it? I mean, Frank is a nice man, and it seems anyway that he is not the right fit. I know people are suggesting that, you come from Brentford, you play a certain kind of way. You come to Spurs, you've got to play a different way. We're a big club, but we're not, are we? I mean, we're manifestly not a big club. It's a bit sniffy of us to say, we expect much bigger things of our coach than some geezer from Brentford whose sole purpose was to keep them up. But aren't we just getting ahead of ourselves here? Aren't we just, I mean, we've been rubbish for a very long time. I know we won a trophy, but who do we think we are?
You're right. That has been the problem for a long time, that we do feel quite entitled because we are Spurs. I mean, we are special. The fact that we were special in 1961, which was quite a long time ago, doesn't really kind of alter the argument at all. I think that the other problem about Thomas Frank is that he has just been catastrophically unlucky. It is not his problem when it comes to the injuries we've had. I mean, I was just sort of the latest injury. Well, it's not an injury. Sarr has come back from AFCON, didn't even play, I don't think. And he's in hospital with a bug. And I was just thinking, those dear old days of the dodgy lasagna. But at least then, we were vying for fourth place. He has been really, really unlucky. And you do ask why so many of our players are just sort of dropping like in They Shoot Horses, don't they? And of course, it's because the squad is so thin. There is no depth in the squad. So the main players are just run into the ground. They're sent back before they're ready. So their injuries become chronic. And here we are. And as for Vinny, or Vinay, or however you pronounce it, I think he was brought over from Arsenal to do an Arsenal, install a promising new manager, stick with him throughout the pain, and sort of 6 years down the line we'd be in contention. But of course that didn't happen, and they had, well, as we've said, they don't seem to have a plan B at all. I don't think they could possibly imagine how wrong it's gone. And I just think it's because, these people just don't know anything about football.
We talked about this Vinay Venkatesham's statement pre the West Ham match on our pod on Friday. It's the odd timing. It's not like we just bought some superstar, because that's the point at which you say, look at us, we're spending money, we're big on this, we're going for it. He did it before a match that was crucial that we could lose, and by losing, the shit is going to hit the fan in so many different ways, and it did. So suddenly those promises look kind of hollow, given that we're still labouring on with a manager who, well, I think is a lame duck. I think we all think he's a lame duck, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Vinay Venkatesham thinks he's a lame duck.
I don't know. I mean, I think what he was trying to do with that sort of statement was sort of say, look, we're listening to you fans. So don't have the big demonstration bit. Don't give us a hard time in the match. Because it was almost like he had a little list of the things that piss us off. He did address, sort of. And I think it was just like a sort of manifesto. It's the sort of stuff that a political party comes out with, before an election, except even less convincing, really. I think again, I think I said this in the last pod, we've been naive. I'll own that. I've been naive. I think the complete mess that's been there for years and years and years that we blamed on Levy was never just Levy. The owners are the same. They brought him in, but they brought him in because they see a like-minded man, I suspect. And it's just, the club is rotten, and the club is rotten from the owners down.
Yeah, we talked about this on Friday, and I think it's a truism. This is not something that's just happened. It's something that's been, kind of bubbling under for a long time. It feels like it's reaching, well, I was going to say it feels like it's reaching a head, but been reaching several heads over the years, and what's happened? Nothing. We talked, I think, in a previous podcast about investment, and there was an obvious moment to do that, wasn't there, after the Champions League final 2019, because we had a team, it was getting a bit tired, but that was the moment to give Poch a load of money and build on the strengths they had. And then we've just won a cup. God help us, I don't know how, but we won a cup. Again, this is the moment where you say, now let's go for it. But what we did was employ a manager based on these fucking metrics, right? He ticked every box. And I'm just a bit scared now that Vinay Venkatesham is thinking, well, we paid a fortune for the consultants to run Thomas Frank through the metrics, and he ticked all the boxes. So we know he's the right man, even though he's disastrous at the moment. We know he's the right man. It feels like we're in this, again, this typical paralysis. We can't spend the big money, even if we wanted to, because do you want to give it to this guy who, is performing so badly?
I think there's one issue here as well, that when Thomas Frank was at Brentford, he didn't actually get much of a say in who they took on. It was all done by stats. And that seems to be the case here as well. And it's just that the stats haven't worked here. I mean, how do you pronounce Langer's name? Is it Langer? Lange? I don't know. I don't know what he does. I still don't know why Paratici left so abruptly. And I imagine it was through a bout of willy waving between Langer and Paratici. And Paratici flounced out. But Paratici seemed to me to be the one who always got us. No, not always. I've just remembered Brian Gill. Often got us really useful players. Kulusevski being, the star of that. And I don't think he did that by stats at all. Whereas now we do seem to be relying on stats. And we've got a load of players who just don't seem to fit together. I mean, you look at Xavier Simons, who has you watch him for 5 minutes in a match and he does something brilliant. And you think, oh, now he's really going to kick on. But he doesn't. That's it. That's his 5 minutes for that match. Muani, yeah, I think it's been said already. I don't know what he does. I don't know what he's good for at all. I mean, you might as well play a hat stand, basically. Except, a hat stand is useful, of course. You can hang your coat on it. I get the impression that the players have been sort of so messed about, and, there have been so many changes in what they do, what they've got to do each time, that they just don't know what to do. Because the whole thing about players is they do like to have a role. They need it to be automatic, a lot of what they do. And there seems to be no kind of automatic sort of knowledge of where they've got to go, who they've got to pass to, what decisions they've got to make, all that stuff. Just the basics of football intelligence just seem to have disappeared. I go back to Flappy, putting his foot on the ball. I mean, does he make decisions at all? He seems to be, he's like Rodin's thinker now. Rodin's thinker was a bundle of energy compared to him. So I don't know where this is going, but I'm just ranting on. Just release me, please.
We like a rant on Nice One, Cyril. Kev, I wanted to raise something with you about supposedly some meetings that have taken place between Thomas Frank and the hierarchy, I suppose, yesterday and supposedly today as well. And since then, he's been given control of the training and the team for at least for tomorrow night. Frank said that all I would say is if there's a storm or bad weather, people normally run away. And he followed that by saying, well, we just had a lovely lunch. The implication being that either they're not telling him what everyone wants to hear, or they've said to him, do you know what? You are really doing a fucking great job, Thomas. And, well, let's take us all the way down to the championship. Why not?
He said, I've been feeling the trust, referring to the owners and board members. And I just thought, he's lost it, hasn't he? Like the rest of us, he's finally completely lost it. God, it's so awful. I wrote a couple of things down here because I thought that might come up, and I'd forgotten what this was about. I actually wrote 3 words, which were wanker, grifter, and I don't even like saying the C word because I'm an old 80s lefty, but the C word. And they were 3 successive tweets that I read. This goes back to what we were saying right at the beginning, which were aimed at Frank. And I would say he's not a wanker, he's not a grifter, he's not a cunt, but it feels like he's become one under this, or becoming one under this intense pressure, to say that, he's feeling the trust to believe that he's doing a decent job, is just awful. And it's sad, and what does he believe that? I don't know anymore.
It's hard to know if he's just fronting up.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to turn up at the press conference this afternoon and say, "Look, I know I'm doing a terrible job, but honestly, it's going to get better," because the story he's been telling all along is we're turning around the Titanic here, and it's you can see the signs of it. And look, we should have beaten Bournemouth. We should have beaten West Ham. We were all over them. It could have easily have been the other way round, but. Thomas, it wasn't the other way around, and you can't trade on off the back of defeats. It doesn't matter how well you played. I mean, I know we all talk about performance. We want to see our team go out and play football, but at the same time, here we are. We've got 27 points. I don't know if we are in danger right now of getting dragged into relegation, but what are we, 14th? I mean, that's so dismal. Just getting into a little bit more granular detail about the match. Now, Julie, you luckily missed it, but Bissouma actually came in and played pretty well. I mean, he looked like Frank hadn't got to him yet, and that he was actually quite progressive and trying to do things. He had a shot from outside the area, naughty man, and I also thought he didn't really have a lot of success, but he was also the only player to try anything. He tried some stuff. He couldn't get past his man, but he tried. Odobert was invisible, and Moani was a hat stand, right? As we've established. Why did he take Tell off to bring Solanke on? And it defies any logical explanation for me. Julie?
Well, you wanted me, right? I thought you'd ruled me out because I hadn't seen all this.
Shall I give it to Kev? It was such a beautifully posed question, and it feels so wasted now.
I know. I'm so sorry. I've let you down. I've let the nation down. I've let the school down.
Kev,
give it to Kev.
I can't repeat it because I don't know what I just said.
Yeah, no, I wasn't actually listening, Simon, at all. But yeah, no, I think the tell substitution was possibly the worst thing he's done, because it was illogical, and I saw his sort of excuse for it or explanation for it, and that didn't make sense either. It was almost like he didn't know why he'd done that. That it's just, this goes back again to the fact that I think he's definitely lost it. That he seemed, when he first came to us, quite a clear thinker, quite focused. Whether we like his focus or the way he set us up or not, there was some clarity, and he doesn't seem to have it now. And I think taking Tell off, Tell wasn't wonderful, but he was our best attacker, and he took him off. couldn't understand that.
And he afterwards he said something like, he was asked, why did you take Tell off? And he said, well, I needed to bring Solanke on. I had to take someone off. But is that how deep it goes? I mean, Christ Almighty,
And that's what he's done with the Champions League squad as well, isn't it? He's actually taken Tell out and put Solanke in.
I don't know what the rules are. Julie, you'll know this. You're a bit of a you're a bit of a pedant, right? You know about all this stuff. So he took Tell out of the squad for the Champions League.
I haven't done my homework, Simon.
Is this going to be? Is this going to be another wasted question?
I haven't done my homework. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Well, we've got the Thomas Frank disease, haven't we? I mean, we don't know why we do things.
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely right. Also, Julie, there was an incident, which I'll tell you about because you didn't watch the match. There was an incident towards the end. I think I'm right in saying that Romero was screaming at the bench to say, look, I need to come off, bring someone else on. And Frank was, again, allegedly waving him away, say, finish the match, go and do your hero thing. And we let a goal in, and if we had a tired or slightly injured defender at the end, that may well have contributed to the defeat, so conceding that goal. And the muddle of all of this, he was going to bring on Danso to take long throws. I mean, that's the only reason to bring him on at that point, because we're trying to win the match. And then he said, do you know what? Bergvall's got quite a good long throw. Let's bring him on instead. It's so muddled. It's such a mess. We all thought he was the tactical genius. It turns out he doesn't seem to know his arse from his elbow.
I think he's actually operating from a mental state of panic. I think that's sort of got a lot to do with what's going on in his head at the moment. Actually, I think he's in a very bad place. All this sort of upbeat stuff about it could have been so good, all that sort of stuff. Had a lovely lunch, all that. That is what actually that's what really depressed people say. Just to fend other people off. I think he must be in a really bad place mentally to have, to have everything collapse around him as it has. I would imagine nothing like this has ever happened to him before.
That's the thing, isn't it, Kevin? He's, at Brentford, he was the king. He'd been there for, 11 years. He was the manager for 7 years. There was never any question about his tenure. He was the guy. He could have taken them down if it happened that way. He was absolutely secure in that position. Here he is at Spurs. One way or the other, the profile is higher, and he does, as Julie says, he does seem to be crumbling under the pressure.
This sort of connects with a couple of other things as well. Something else I wrote down in my little note app was someone tweeted a couple of hours ago, he has to feel every ounce of our disdain tomorrow. It's the only way. And my response to that was just to feel, oh, fuck off. No, I think the disdain has been clear. What are you trying to do? And I sort of get the thinking. The thinking is, if we make it clear enough to the owners that we hate Frank, then we can get rid of Frank. And I just think we're better than that. And it just pissed me off. But it's also, if you take a sort of more contextual look at that, it says something about how we're all feeling. I get that something has to change. How can we change it? Let's abuse Frank.
Yeah, I saw a sort of an equally puerile tweet today. A guy saying, if you can afford not to go tomorrow night, don't go. But if you're going to go, boo for 90 minutes. I mean, what? Seriously? Lee, I mean, this is... We're plumbing the depths here. Yeah. And there's also a very troubling incident, which somebody was... I wouldn't say he was bragging about it, but some bloke with a drink in his hand was filmed approaching Viv Lewis, and he wanted a confrontation. He wanted to say, you know, I pay 24 grand a year to come to watch this club. What are you going to do? When are you going to get rid of Frank? When are you going to sell up? And I'm thinking, this is beyond the pale. I mean, Julie, you know, it's frightening. She's under no obligation to talk to a fan in that, certainly not in that situation. You know, and people on the internet have been, you know, bigging this guy up. Well done, you. Yeah, well done for confronting it. No, not well done. You're just a bully, and that's dangerous and it's unpleasant. And Steve Perryman was there as well. I know you spoke to Steve today.
Last night, actually, he called. Well, he was spitting feathers, in fact, because the Daily Telegraph had put it online, the incident. He was there because he had been watching the game with the higher-ups, and he just happened to sort of be wandering across the concourse at the same time as Vivienne Lewis was, you know, at the concourse. And he, obviously, they knew each other. This bloke came up, effing and blinding. This is the first time I've said effing and blinding rather than fucking on this pod. Shows you how polite I can be. Yeah, Steve actually, I think, said something to the bloke like, well, go away. He said to Vivienne Lewis, you know, you'll turn it around, just a bit of sort of, you know, a few kind of soothing words. But of course it was all filmed and the Telegraph picked it up, and they actually sort of said that Steve Perryman was there, and as a member of as he was on the board of the Tavistock group who owns the club. And of course Steve was completely livid about that, because the last thing he would want to be is on the board of the Tavistock group who own the club, especially right at this minute. I put Steve in touch with I think we all know the wonderful Henry Winter, who's got the most marvellous contacts book, and Henry actually put Steve in touch with the people who were alleged to have written the piece in the Telegraph, who actually didn't know that their bylines were on the piece. So we were speculating that it was actually written by AI. So the game has gone that far now, you know, even the Telegraph. At least when I was a journalist, we wrote our own lies. But anyway, so Steve has got his correction in the Telegraph. But I mean, yeah, a pretty awful incident, I would say. And the bloke sort of boasting about, you know, doing this thing.
Yeah, it was really, really grim, that. And there were also people talking about Steve Perryman. Kevin, there were people saying, oh, how disappointing it was that club legend Steve Perryman didn't get behind the yobbo who was attacking Viv Lewis, that he didn't, you know, that this was his moment. For, you know, I mean, how ridiculous is this? The whole scenario is so genuinely distasteful.
It's horrible. It's like a big, extended, dysfunctional, barely a family, isn't it, at the moment? And you know, there's so much sort of. And the thing is, I realise that I've spent more time the last couple of weeks worrying about and reading about bloody Tottenham than about all the other horrible things in the world. And you just sort of think, there's part of me, I'm probably talking myself out of doing a football podcast at all at this point, but there's part of me that thinks, if only we could throw some of that sort of ferocity and anger and righteousness into things that really, really matter, instead of having a go at Steve Perryman, instead of having a go at Thomas Frank. You know, and I know it's a sort of distraction. It's it's been a huge part of my life. It's a part of my family's life. But it doesn't mean that we have to treat each other that badly. It really doesn't. And the anger and all this calling Frank wanker, grifter, cunt, there's a lot of other people that deserve those sort of epithets.
I totally agree with that. I mean, it's sometimes you see somebody getting riled up on social media. I'll sometimes just drop a reply and say, look, it's only football. You know, it's only football. Part of me thinks, well, yeah, football, as Kev says, it plays such a massive part in our lives. But when push comes to shove, if Spurs get relegated to the Championship, well, we'll all be, we'll all be very downhearted about it. But there's still war and famine and things going on in this world. Trump, a lunatic at the helm of the most powerful country in the world. These are the things that really, when you boil it down, that's what matters. So we ought to be able to take our football and our passion for our club with the appropriate pinch of salt, which I think is what we do on this podcast. Kev, you've just given me an idea. We need to do a podcast about world affairs and take ourselves very seriously.
You're on. I can do that. I can do that.
Shall we do that? All right. Well, let's leave it with me. I'll get busy on the prep. But let's move on a little bit. Julie, we still assume, don't we, that Frank is going to go. I don't know why we're assuming that, because all the indications today are, he's had a nice lunch with the guys and everything's fine. We're not going to beat Dortmund tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of empty seats, and I don't know. He's got to go. So what are we going to do? There's a lot of talk about this stupid comeback Poch nonsense. There's even people saying come back Ange. But and even more ridiculously, absolutely risibly, people talking about Xabi Alonso coming to us. But we do have to have a solution. And allegedly, according to Gary of Harlow, we want to make a permanent appointment now, rather than an interim or caretaker and all that rubbish. And we just remain in a state of paralysis.
Well, yeah, the problem was that the owners just never envisaged this happening, unfolding in the way it has done. So they don't have a plan B, they don't have a plan C. When they announced Heitinger as the assistant coach, I did think to myself, hello, that's what's going to happen. He's going to be the interim manager. I think, first of all, it is pretty likely that the intention is to hang Thomas Frank out to dry, I would think. Secondly, before this pod goes down the path of, just absolute dismal depression, can I just say a word about Ben Davies?
Come on. Yes, for sure.
Haven't really. It looks like, to me, the worst thing about that game in a way was not losing to Wet Spam. It was probably the fact that we will never see Ben Davies play for us again. I think, he's 32, coming up 33 maybe. That was probably his last game. And, I'm bringing myself to tears. I've always loved Ben Davies. Model professional, really bright guy, never moaned, did all the right things, stood in for, other players countless times. Really good player. At one stage, he was the butt of all the abuse.
Yep.
Which, again, harks back to what we were talking about earlier. I would just like to say, with a frog in my throat, tears in my eyes, thank you, Ben Davies. You were brilliant. And whatever happens, I hope you have a fantastic rest of life, because, you have meant so much to us at Spurs for the last 10 years or so. You've done so much. Oh, God, I'm going to have to shut myself up.
That's a fitting tribute. And I think, Kevin, I think Ben Davies was always that steady Eddie, that cool head in a sea of lunacy. And clearly a guy of, thoughtful and intelligent. And that is not the way you want to see a player of that humanity and personality go out. It was a really nasty injury. He had surgery today. I think he's done his ankle. And of course, the other element to that is that he's the captain of Wales. And they are on the brink of possibly, qualifying for the World Cup. And if he misses that, that's just not fair, is it?
Not at all. That's so sad. I was just thinking, you could imagine him making a really good manager because of that intelligence, because of that integrity, because I think players will like him and respect him. And maybe in a couple of years' time, he'll, get a sort of lower league side I hope that happens. I hope that whatever he does, he is successful at, and I think it could be a manager or something a bit maybe like Ryan Mason, but there's a sort of similarity. I'm trying not to say anything horrible about Ryan Mason now, but I think it's Ben Davies has been. I'm trying to avoid as well saying a great servant of the club, but he has been a great servant of the club. And,
Yeah. Look, listen, that's a cliche that works on this occasion. I hope I suspect he's too intelligent to go back into football management. He knows what awaits him. I mean, a fundamentally decent guy like Frank is now having to cop so much shit, and you just put yourself out there to be smashed, and I hope he, for his sake, that he finds something else more or less pressurised and more worthwhile to do. Let's just quickly talk about Dortmund then. We're missing about 709 players for this one, either suspended or injured or pointlessly removed from the squad. As I said earlier, I think there'll be empty seats. There will be a mood of, I don't say hostility, but it's not going to be great. And we've only got to let one in the first 10 minutes, and God knows it's going to be horrible. Do we stand even the remotest chance of getting a result? And if we do, does that give Frank a stay of execution? Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, Julie, if some of the kids get a shot. Williams Barnett, for example. I actually think Frank. People talk about him being this great nurturer of talent, but actually, I think he's fundamentally cautious. I would guess he's going to go cautious, try not to lose, but you never know. What's your prediction for the match?
Well, I think, as you say, same old. When being cautious, going for not losing rather than winning. But I have a dream. I had this sort of little fantasy that Solanke was going to have a worldie,
Wow.
and he might win the tie for us. So I'll just leave that there.
Well, look, thank you for that, Martin Luther, Julie. That was that's quite the dream. Kev, a quick prediction for tomorrow night?
My prediction is we're not going to get absolutely humiliated. So I'm going to go 3-1 to them, but we'll play okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that's okay. Well, look, I'm going to go for a 0-2. But I hope perhaps it's the shackles off and what the hell, go for it and maybe even play some football, which would be quite a blessed relief. Look, we're done. I hope we've. I don't think we've solved any of the problems, but I hope we've had some fun trying. So my thanks to Kev Aker and of course Julie Welch. If you want to give us a follow on Twitter /X, we are at Nice One Cyril Pod. We are on all of the major podcast platforms. Give us a follow, subscribe, all that malarkey, and you'll never miss an episode. That's it. Come on, you Spurs.